rejects Bill 21 and 42% are against it. But here in Quebec, 66% of respondents are in favor of the religious symbols ban, while only 25% are not.
Many accuse the bill of contributing to a growing trend of hate crimes against religious minorities and Islamophobia in Quebec. Bill 21 is in faith.
Right? So I thought it was the same thing in BC, so I was like, I don't know if I can turn right. And then I have people like honking at me and they're like, you can go, and yeah.
Bill 21 has been one of the most contentious laws to have been passed and put into effect within the province of Quebec. This bill was passed on June 16, 2019, which prohibits the display of religious symbols by public sector workers within the workplace. This bill has caused an uproar within our Canadian society. So let's have a conversation about it. What's all the noise about? Why are people so upset?
Well, we go deep into these communities and talk to real Canadians that are directly affected by this bill. Our story begins with Amrit, a school teacher who moved to BC because of the laxity of the state law.
It's been almost a year since the government started talking about Bill 21, and we actively taking part in all the protests and everything, getting people together to stop it initially, but that didn't succeed because CAQ has a majority government, so that didn't work. And after the bill was passed, as you already heard, Amrit graduated same day when in the morning, and the bill was passed at night. And as a result of Bill 21, she had to move to, other end of the country, British Columbia.
So my choice to move to BC was because I saw people who looked like myself, well integrated into society. They were working in many fields and many positions of authority that people like myself have traditionally not worked in all across Canada. So I felt it was a place that I could integrate and I could just be myself and progress in my career.
I was born here, so I am a Quebecois. I'm a part of this society, so when you say R includes me. It affects me from an empathy point of view because I never wanted my sister to be alone against a million people telling her she's wrong.
Amrit Kaur's story is rooted in courage. Throughout Canadian history, we've seen that courage before. Retired Inspector Baltej Singh Dillon was the first member of the RCMP to serve in the community as an officer that also wore a turban. In stark contrast, the province of Quebec has barred police officers from wearing religious symbols to this date.
My name is Baltej Singh Dhillon. I'm a former RCMP officer, and in 1989 I had applied to join the RCMP. And at that time, the RCMP did not have a uniform policy to accommodate the beard and the turban of a Sikh police officer. So that followed with a nationwide debate. A lot of conversation, a lot of discussion, which then drew in a lot of hatred as well. I was the recipient of a number of death threats, a lot of conversation around what is it to be Canadian. I never imagined that we would be here again, 29 years later, that we are now again reflecting on, considering, talking about, how articles of faith could potentially make someone less. And really that's a conversation, that it would make someone less in the delivery of a service, in their public service, in their commitment to serve this country. I took an oath as a Canadian citizen. I took an oath as an RCMP officer. I took an oath to serve. And so if we don't believe in that, if we don't think that's working, we don't think that all is worthwhile, then maybe we need to look at that, because it is offensive, plainly, that after I've taken an oath and after I've said I will do my very best and to serve, and that I will practice fairness and be objective in the delivery of that service, that I am then questioned, that I as a Canadian citizen am then put on the spot, that because of your articles of faith, somehow you are less, somehow you will not be able to meet those requirements, you will not be able to meet the promise you made. That's offensive. And so this is as disrespectful as we can get with each other.
When a great Canadian, Baltej Singh Dhillon, wanted to serve and represent that great iconic Mountie image of Canada, and wanted to do it with the great pride of wearing a turban, because it is Canadian to wear a turban. And yet there are many Canadians that didn't necessarily agree and created propaganda pins to protest against.
Baltej Singh Dhillon is a true Canadian inspiration, and his story is one that we can all learn from. These are the stories of resilience that empower the youth of today.
I'm very confident that Quebecers who wear religious symbols are able to provide secular education and enforce secular laws.
These educated people who have worked hard to get to where they want to be are just being removed from their roles in society. And then in terms of removing all these people's role models, so these children who are experiencing discrimination now don't have any role models in those kinds of fields to look up to. And you can think about how that would progress over time and how that can affect intergenerational trauma. And that's very scary to me.
The impacts of this law are very invisible to a majority of the population.
But it's not going to stop people who wear religious symbols from existing. It's just going to stop them from existing in roles of power, of privilege, and being the role models for the future generations to grow up to be like them.
Moi, je voulais aussi dire que mon conjoint est sikh et j'espère, je suis certaine qu'on va élever nos enfants d'une façon qui supporte en fait le choix religieux qu'ils vont prendre, et que le fait que si mon enfant décide de porter un turban, le fait qu'il ne pourrait pas devenir policier ou professeur, mais me donne des larmes aux yeux parce que c'est tout simplement injuste. Et puis, il n'y a aucune raison pourquoi il ne pourrait pas devenir professeur ou autre.
En fait, je pense que si on pense juste au niveau de l'éducation, le fait qu'il
les enfants de notre génération future n'auront pas cette exposition-là de différence, je pense que ça va être une grande perte pour la société en entier du Québec.
We learn in class that cultural humility is like a lifelong learning process, and a lot of that learning doesn't just come like from the internet, it's from our interactions with other people.
I was surprised to hear, and that is my own naivete, coming from clinicians who are currently working at the bedside in acute care, so in a hospital context, who have said that over the last year that they have had people ask them whether the person, the nurse, or the préposé, so the beneficiary attendant, you guys call orderlies, whether they are allowed to be wearing the veil or allowed to be wearing whatever religious symbol that they were wearing.
We had this discussion very often. I think that there is some discrimination in Quebec, but there's no systemic discrimination. There's no system in Quebec of discrimination, and it's a very, very small minority of the people that are doing some discrimination.
My main reason or point for wanting to talk to you guys was to try and dispel a little bit that myth that at least I think the rest of Canada has in a lot of ways, that Quebec's very xenophobic, and that the only reason this bill is being put into place is because there's some maybe hatred or fear of the other or other people, and I think that that's toxic for within Canada, but also just not the right perspective to have. I completely understand why someone would not support this bill, for obvious reasons, especially if you're not culturally aligned with the way Quebec views religion. So I just think that understanding that perspective that Quebec has is important. I don't think trying to change people's minds on how the bill or the bill itself is really going to happen, but as long as people understand that it's not through that lens of, or for the vast majority, it's not through that lens of hate.
Je m'appelle Arjun Singh Toor et je suis un Canadien de 4 générations. Mes ancêtres sont venus ici en Canada en 1906, donc ma famille est canadienne depuis plus que 100 ans. Les gens comme mes ancêtres, comme mon arrière-grand-père Kalam Singh Toor, ont battu et ont contribué à la création de la nation du Canada qu'on voit aujourd'hui.
It's without a doubt that the reason it's being pushed harder now is because of the influx of religions with outward symbols. You can't get around that. Which is why it's been such a more of a topic now versus when it was before. And that's unfortunate. I wish it wasn't. I wish this was something that was gotten out of the way when this wasn't. The political climate, if this had happened in the 70s, it would have been much better, and I wish it would have just happened then and then not been much.
Ce sont les pionniers sikhs comme mon arrière-grand-père Kalam Singh Toor qui ont battu cet pays. C'est les gens comme lui qui sont venus ici du Punjab, qui ont travaillé dans les scieries pour toute leur vie, qui ont contribué à la création de la nation du Canada qu'on voit aujourd'hui. Et sans lui, notre nation n'aurait pas pu être aussi bon et accueillant que c'est aujourd'hui.
Yeah, donc en français, c'est vraiment un pamphlet qui, l'intitulé, c'est un outil pour lutter contre la discrimination, saisissez vos droits et réclamez-les.
Well, if you are a victim of a certain heinous act or a verbal aggression or whatever, try to film the situation. See if there are any witnesses around you. Get their contacts.
As people who want to live in a more just society and equitable society, looking to see that laws are being drafted to exclude members of our society and to put them in even harm's way, because we've seen how Muslim women have testified to the increasing amount of hate acts that they've been subjected to. And that's something that really touches me, because as a Black woman, I've also been the victim of hate acts in public sphere. Well, I think that what we need to understand is that Islamophobia doesn't live in a vacuum. It comes from racism. So just because we're not directly affected does not mean that we shouldn't be concerned.
It's okay to be a person of faith. It's okay to manifest that faith through a visual appearance, and it's okay to be proud of it. A child growing up wearing a hijab should not be developing a complex that, I may not be able to do my job just because of the way I dress, right? That's really demoralizing. And I think one of the most hurtful things I heard was my friend, his daughter who wears a hijab, she turned to her dad and said, "Daddy, am I doing something wrong?" And he was like, "No, you're not doing anything wrong. You're just being you."
We as a human being, we are same. We are one family, so why we have to reject other people's choices, other people's right? Yeah.
As someone who's being affected, I have to reevaluate what I'm going to do with my life, how I'm going to handle the repercussions of this bill. And it's not easy listening to hateful things about yourself. And it's not easy dealing with hate mail or criticism of just how you look when people, they're not even trying to get to know you. And if they got to know you, they'd see that passion that you have for education, or the fact that, you've lived here your whole life, you resonate with a lot of Quebec values. You get offended when people make fun of Quebecers just like any other Quebecer, but they ignore that and they just look at you and what's on your body, and that in itself is hurtful.
Many Quebecers, and I worked with many Quebecer scientists. They are most wonderful people I have ever met, and when I talk to them, they know what we believe. So basically, they are behind us. The question is, some of them, they are misinformed in my view, and basically, once people will be more informed, that especially in university culture, basically we work with every person from many different cultures, from international students. I never had even a single problem in my life here working in Quebec.
The French Constitution, the country of France, in principle only exists because people who look like me helped during World War I to save France from extinction. And how do we do it? We did it simply with our turbans on, to defend the territory, the laws, the constitutions of France, which are now in turn being used against us. How sad.
Like, if you can't leave these symbols at home to do your 8 hours of a judge or become a judge, then how can we trust you to be unbiased at work? As a representative of the state, to represent the law and only the law, how can you do that if you aren't even able to take your cross off, take your kippah off, if those personal convictions are so strong, which they are for a lot of people, can we really expect someone to let that go when they become a police officer or a judge?
I will not give up, and I don't want to give up. Even me changing my number is just something so bizarre. You can take the Quebecer out of Quebec, but you can't take like the Quebecer out of the girl.
See, my sister was on the news. She was interviewed a million times. Her face was everywhere. Her problem was unarguable. She wasn't allowed to work, but the arguments made against her was, you're the one person this affects.
We have to work together to resolve issues.
Right.
And that's how things get done in a society when everybody works together.
Nursing globally and in Quebec and in Canada, like there's so many of us, we're the strongest force in terms of the healthcare system. I really think that this is so important that we really need to speak up about this. And like if anyone can make a change, it's nurses.
Because one chooses to commit to a higher lifestyle, to a way that keeps them disciplined and properly motivated to live a life of truthfulness and to live a life of compassion and kindness, that is somehow not what we're looking for. That is somehow going to interfere with the service delivery. So I'm shocked. I was completely blown away. How could this be? Not at my candidate. I hope, I pray that all of my fellow Canadians and others as well, everywhere, take a moment, use social media, speak out, let others know. Because if we allow it to happen, if it does happen, then what we've really said is that there are people that we're not going to trust because of the way they look, because of their faith, because of what they practice. And those are the folks at the end of the day that are going to be a part of the racialized communities, because they are the ones that wear outwardly visible articles of faith for the most part.
Gain the world and lose your soul. Try to see what the future holds, but looking back to check if the suture's closed. Knew the road that I walk is often a lonely one. Younger feeling awkward in solitude, though it so becomes a lifeline. And more essential as I grow with age. Finding peace in the silence deeper below the days. Me and Magic would rhyme and keep up the flow to raise hell when we blow the stage. You know the praise is all coming from heart. Some in the spark, fan of fire, plan empires. Call you my brother above the art. Live parallels as well. We both raising nieces and both found queens. Somebody mama can meet with. Don't hide when I'm at my weakest. I showed her that side. For the hardships, no man to have shoulders that wide. Told her that's why it's known, but now I gotta say it. That is because of y'all I found my way in. For the times when I should have said the words they deserve to hear. And for the times when the feeling was more than what we willing to share. But this is for the time that we giving. Find that it's never too long before the giving is gone. And so I gotta speak now when I speak now, say the words, give them life, they deserve to hear it, so live it right. Bit my tongue 1,000 times, didn't know how to find the words to let you know that you was out of line. Doubt I'm blind, saw my sister leave with the kids in the bags packed, but you collapsed up in the crib, too drunk in the glance back. Loved you like an older brother, so she never blow your cover, never spoken of your other side, hope we won't discover. So it's tougher cause she suffered alone, kept appearances of parents though it wasn't a home, played the mother and the father figure. Hard to picture how we never heard a sound as you drowned in the darkest liquor. She said she needs a partner with her, felt safe in the storm and made it the norm. Crazy when head and heart can differ, and I know you're hurting cause nobody's walking with you, but you talk as if only you could be thought the victor, and there's no winners. So either rebuild or let it go, but no, it needs to be real. For the times when I should have said the words they deserve to hear, and for the times when the feeling was more than what we willing to share. But this is for the time that we giving, find that it's never too long before the giving is gone. And so I gotta speak now, when I speak now, say the words, give them life, they deserve to hear it, so live it right. Cry when my grandma passed, the ash scattered, we last chatted about a childhood and laughed, bad as it seemed.